Alan Hume was born in 1829, and like his father, the MP Joseph Hume, he was a radical liberal with a keen sense of justice. At 20, Hume joined the Indian Civil Service, where his work ethic and talent in working with locals eventually led to a very senior position. Hume's outspokenness and his concern for millions of Indians put him at odds with the British self-interest, and he was demoted. After retiring from government, he began supporting Indian national politics, which led to the formation of the Indian National Congress. I was amazed that they had a picture of the first gathering of the Indian National Congress in 1885, and there was a white man in the middle who I found out was Alan Hume, and I thought, how could I know nothing about this person? And here's his history, which maps onto kind of history of empire on my doorstep, and I thought it'd be great if we could share that and explore that.
I was just fascinated that in this little corner of South London there was someone who played such a leading role in the founding of the Indian National Congress, and I found that incredibly admirable, that in between, living amongst us are these real heroes, and we don't really often see them.
I've found this stamp of A.O. Hume, which was produced by India in the 1970s. I think the exact date on here is 1973. And since finding out about his contributions in the towards the setting up of the Congress Party in India, you know, I'm absolutely fascinated by this guy. And he was a colonialist, but he's actually respected in India today because he wasn't just there to exploit India. He actually believed in India getting independence later, and he wanted to make a contribution towards India gaining independence, and I find this quite fascinating.
The commemorative stamp has moving words about Hume's significance to India. It reads, "As an administrator with a deep insight and understanding of the problems of rural India, as a friend of Indian peasantry, as a champion of the aspirations of the Indian people for self-government, and as the foremost advocate of India's unity and nationhood, Hume carved out for himself a place of affection in the hearts of the Indian people."
He was very much part of the empire, but at the same time he saw the other side of things, and he did a lot to encourage people poorer than himself and more defenceless. People at the time might have found him very, very radical, but looking at it from both sides, both from the empire and the enemies of the British Empire, he was very much central and very much between the two.
I think, so the whole question of how do you get people to come together, share a vision and work together and to move it forward, I think Hume was exemplary in that, in his ability to go around India and be in contact with newspaper editors, senior people, educated people, and try and make them think of how as a collective they can wield more power and can move towards something, producing social change far more and greater above to be compartmentalized. And to me, that's inspiration, And I'm not saying that Hume is the be-all and end-all of Indian independence, far from it, but Hume is significant in that story in terms of how you begin to try and enact change. And in that context, it was to do with getting the Indian people to galvanize themselves to move towards greater self-government. In 1883, Hume wrote an open letter to the graduates of Calcutta University, cajoling and imploring them to act. Part of that letter read, "If you, the picked men, the most highly educated of the nation, cannot, scorning personal ease and selfish objects, make a resolute struggle to secure greater freedoms for yourself and your country, a more impartial administration, a larger share in the management of your own affairs, then we, your friends, are wrong and your adversaries are right."
When he returned from the Indian service, when he was a major figure in the evolution of the Indian National Congress, and he was a great diplomat and a very powerful personality, but from the moment he narrowed his focus to British plants, he was someone who could inspire, he was someone who could assist and somehow make things happen. So the main thing that I see when I look at Hume is a very powerful figure who would brush aside people trying to slow him down and try and harness their abilities and tried to work for what he thought was a good purpose.
The beginnings of my fascination with Hume is clearly because of Hume's immensely important bird collection, which is the largest single donation of bird specimens ever received by the Natural History Museum. It is the foundation of all research on Indian subcontinent birds right up to the current day.
While he was still working as a civil servant in the British government in India, around 200 of his papers, notes and letters were published. He also founded and edited the journal Stray Feathers and wrote 4 books including The Game Birds of India, Burma and Ceylon. His brilliance in building networks is exemplified by his collection of over 100,000 bird and egg specimens. These were collected by himself and other British civil servants dotted across India who shared in Hume's passion for nature.
The South London Botanical Institute